I'd like to call to order this meeting of the City of Menasha Board of Public Works. Clerk Galiazzi, could you please take roll call?
I know. Thank you, Alderman Benner. Alderman Nichols.
Here.
Alderman Krautkramer.
Here.
Alderman Collier.
Here.
Alderman Keehan. Alderman Zielinski. Alderman Spencer and Taylor have been excused.
First order of business is to approve the minutes from the Board of Public Works meeting on September 19th, 2016. Is there a motion? Alderman Keehan.
Thank you. I'll move to approve the Board of Public Works minutes from the meeting of 9/19/16.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to council. We do have communications this evening from Engineering Supervisor Montour. Update on the Racine Street Road and 9th Street construction project. See in there somewhere? Not here. Well, so much for our communications. I believe that has something to do with it opening very soon. Like tomorrow? Yeah.
Well, I can,
Oh, there you
either
go.
the chief or I can comment on that as well.
Mayor Merkes, go ahead.
So there will be a soft opening to the public from 5 till 7 on Tuesday night, correct, chief? That they will be doing some bike safety, pedestrian safety items within the roundabout before cars get in there. So the Wisconsin Bike Federation will be there. The Menasha and Fox Crossing PD will also be there. I think the chief and I will both be there as well, and we'll help people get used to the new roundabout and show people that are using non-motorized vehicles how to use it safely and effectively. So hopefully you can join us tomorrow, right by your house.
Right by my house.
And
No
we'll have
excuse
a
not to.
fun little quiz about roundabouts, and if you take our quiz, you'll get 30 minutes of free airtime at the Sky Zone Trampoline Park. So there's your added bonus to check this out.
Also very good. No excuse not to be there and every reason to be there. See the public out there too. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. We have several action items this evening, and we're going to jumble that a little bit for the people that are in the audience. Our first action item will be Ordinance O-15-16, an ordinance creating private lead water service lateral replacement requirements, introduced by yours truly. Mr. Goes is here from the Water Department, and he is set to have a presentation for us. Let me just, am I good? Can you see?
All right, I'm ahead. All right, that's all right.
What are we looking for?
We are proposing a lead service line ordinance, or we're asking that the council would pass one. We have been looking at this situation for several years. We do have several lead services in the city of Menasha, as well as there's other issues with lead as far as, because like what are the sources of lead in our lives? We have lead-based paints and varnishes, which are probably where most of the lead in people are affected by it. The paint dust and stuff also contaminates soil and dust, but there is some in water lines and plumbing fixtures. Now, houses built before 1950 could very well have a lead line going into the house, as well as fixtures. All brass fixtures actually have 8% lead in it. There was several years that they had lead was in the flux and the solder when they put copper pipes together, that can leach into the system. So that's how it gets into the water. The World Health Organization has come out and said there's no known level of lead exposure that is considered safe. Up to a few years ago, they thought 5 microliters was considered before anything action was taken, but the more they're learning about it, the less they want no lead at all, especially for children. Lead is measured in parts per billion, and so To give you an idea what that is, in an Olympic-sized swimming pool of 660,000 gallons, it would be a half a teaspoon. So it's not very much. How does the lead get into your drinking water? Lead service lines, lead solder, lead fixtures, including faucets. What are the health effects of lead? Children are especially vulnerable, and it can cause behavior and learning problems, lower IQs and hyperactivity, slowed growth, hearing problems, anemia, and in rare cases it can cause seizures, comas, and even death. So it is a very serious problem, one that needs to be looked at. I think that after what happened in Flint, everyone's a lot more aware of lead in the drinking water. Health effects continued. In pregnant women, it can reduce the growth of the fetus, premature birth. In adults, it can have effects as well. It can cause cardiovascular effects, increased blood pressure. So there isn't anyone who cannot be harmed by the effects of the lead. I thought I'd spend a little time explaining to you how lead right now is regulated. Right now, the lead is regulated by an action level of 15 parts per billion at the 90th percentile. And basically what that means is if you collect 100 samples, you can have 10 that are above 15, because that 90th one would be the 15th percentile. So in Menasha, let me back up a little bit. Right now, if you don't meet the lead and copper rules, part of the response would be you have to install corrosion control, and if you still don't meet it, then you have to start replacing lead service lines. Now, with a water utility, we are not allowed to, by the PSC regulations, we're not allowed to replace the homeowner's portion of the lead service. So we were only replacing our portion, and what they're finding is that's actually causing a bigger hazard than what actually leaving them there was. And so now they're backing off of that, even though it's still in the regulations. Both the EPA and the Wisconsin DNR are recommending not to do partial lead services. The EPA's advisory board concludes that partial lead service line replacements have not been shown to reliably reduce drinking water lead levels in the short term, ranging from days to month and potentially even longer. Additionally, partial lead service line replacement is frequently associated with short-term elevated drinking water levels for some period of time after replacement. Now, I've read where sometimes it's even up to 6 months that it's considerably higher after that lead service is disturbed. So we're actually causing more harm than good by doing a partial replacement. A little definition. What is a lead service line? That's we have no lead service mains in the city of Menasha. They're all cast iron or plastic or, but there are several lead service lines, and that's from the main to the house. Partial lead service line replacement means is replacing the utilities portion, which is basically from the curb stop usually in the terrace to the main. Now, from the main or from the curb stop to the house is the homeowner's private property. Full lead service line replacement involves replacing both portions of the lead service line owned by the customer as well as by the utilities. We estimate that there are between 1,200 and 1,500 lead service lines in Menasha. Part of our problem is we do not have good data from back in the 40s and 50s and 60s when they were putting in building houses, they did not record what services they have. We kind of I went through the records that we have, and there was like 1,474 services that were installed while they were using lead. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're all lead, but probably a good portion of those are. We have 55 that we know are lead, and of the 1,474, 457 we have already replaced our portion of lead service, so that's only the homeowner's portion that is left. We do plan on in 2017 going door to door in the older section of town to try and get a survey of what lead service line we plan on hiring additional summer help and have them go actually knock on doors and go look at the services and record what's inside the house. What we also do is when we do a main in the street, we send out letters and we ask the customer that if they don't know what kind of service they have and they think it might be lead, just to call us, and then we go out and check. And then we do record now whatever is put in there. So we're trying to get our records up to date on that. What are the latest results for Menasha Utilities water? We're required to test 30 sites every 3 years. We've been doing that since '91. Since '91, we have not exceeded the lead levels of 15 parts per billion at the 90th percentile. The latest test results were back in 2014, and it was 11 parts per billion was the 90th percentile. So I'll be the first to admit that when I started working at the utilities, I assumed that because we were in regulation or meeting all the regulations that meant our water didn't pose a threat or harm to anybody, but that may not always be the case, especially with lead. Because obviously 11 parts per billion to coming into somebody's house, that's a lot of lead. Now there are simple ways you can help to reduce that. Just flushing your tap for a while will reduce it. But we do have lead in our system. What have we been doing to address it? We do have DNR approved corrosion control. We are instituting a unidirectional flushing system, which is flushing the lines to remove the sediment, and that really helps because what happens is as corrosion happens in the lines, you get particles of lead and copper that float in the mains, and we increase the velocity when we do the flushing by shutting valves and focusing the water down one direction so that we remove a lot of the sediments, and it's actually a much better cleaning system. We're in our second year of attempting that or of doing that, but now this year, because we have our tower out of service, we may not complete all because of the fact that it's very difficult without the tower in service, and which will be going back in a couple of weeks. But we continue to get the procedures in place so that it's going to take probably 4 or 5 years to have the procedures for the entire city. And then once that does, we're going to really try and do it like every 2 years or every 3 years, depending on the manpower we have. And that the city of Green Bay actually hadn't made their lead and copper for several of their last tests, and they did a complete unidirectional flush of their system, and now they are back in compliance, so it can make a difference. We've been removing our portion of lead service. I don't think that's going to continue because they're really pushing hard for utilities to quit doing that. In fact, Milwaukee is talking about actually suspending all main replacement because they don't want to put in the mains, hook the same lead services up to them, and then have to dig it back up. And just taking that lead service off of a main and putting it to the new one is going to disturb that lead and actually cause it to go up. So it's, without changing out the entire service, we're going to cause lead to go up in them houses that do have that, or we're going to have to quit. We aren't going to be allowed to put in mains where there are lead services. So they are in the process of redoing the entire lead and copper rule, and it looks like they're going to really tighten up the numbers on what's allowed. We're not 100% sure what direction that's going to go. We also been working on some community education. We do have a lot of information on our website. I've met several times with the health department, and they've been very helpful, got us a lot of information, and we've put it up there. We've talked about maybe even doing some presentations to some community events so that people better understand how to deal with lead out in the system. Who's responsible for the costs? From the curb stop to the water main is the utilities' responsibility, and from the curb stop to the house is owned by the homeowner and is the homeowner's responsibility. Now, we spent a lot of time looking at this before. I mean, we've been working on bringing this to the council for almost 3 years because we've been searching high and low for funding to try and reduce the impact on the homeowners, because we understand that there's people that they don't have a lot of money, and all of a sudden hitting them with a $1,800 bill to replace the lead service line is very traumatic to them, and they just might not be able to do it. And we kind of run into a lot of brick walls with the utilities trying to do it because of the fact that we are regulated by the PSC, and in being regulated by the PSC, one of their rules is that none of the ratepayers' money can be used for anything done on a private property. So we tried several different programs. We tried to get by the PSC. We tried to do a revolving loan, a couple other different programs, and we just were shut down at every turn. So the goal is obviously lead-free water for all Menasha residents. We work very hard at producing the highest quality water. The efforts to reduce lead in drinking water have helped and are necessary. I mean, corrosion control changes, flushing practices, replacing mains. But the only way really to solve the issue is to remove the lead from the entire system. We have been replacing our portion of lead since 1990s. Over the past 5 years, we've been encouraging the homeowners to replace their portion as well. We have offered to have we usually get a price from the contractor that's putting in the water main, and they do it so much a foot and then a cost to hook it up. And the actual average cost has been about $1,200 for the homeowner's portion, doing it that way. Now, we hope to continue to do that with our contractors. WIAP ordinance, it really to protect public health. And we know the way we're doing it with partial lead service line replacement, that's not the best way to go. I mean, that was the standard for years, but they're finding out that was not the ideal situation. Full lead service line actually reduces the lead exposure for a child or adult who drinks the water. Actually gets the lead out of the system. It would start Menasha on a path to lead-free drinking water. We find them and we test our raw water coming in and our finished water leaving our plant, and there is no lead in our water when we produce it. It all comes from the distribution system and the plumbing systems within the houses. So that's where it makes the most sense to attack it. How will the ordinance work? It requires property owners to replace their lead service when the utility is replacing the water main on the street of the residence. So when we go down 6th Street or 3rd Street or whatever street we're putting a water main in, that's where they would be required to replace their lead service. And the utility will request a price from our contractor. The owner can find their own contractor or a utility contractor to replace the main. Where do we go from here? The Wisconsin DNR has made some money available. The state revolving loan program has made money available. The loan is 100% principal forgiveness, so it doesn't have to be paid back, and it's dedicated to replacing private lead services. Now, it cannot be used to replace any portion of the utilities services, but just the private. So we applied, and we did receive $300,000 in the first round of funding. It's for 2017, but it's actually, they give us 2 years, and it's 2 years for sure, and they've been looking at maybe allowing 3 years to use the money up in case it takes, not knowing how many lead services can be replaced in a year, depending on the city and how many people participate. But the way it would work is they would be eligible for the rebate if during water main replacement at the location of lead service, the owner replaces his service. So if we're replacing the main and he has a lead service and he replaces it, he would be available for this program. Or if at in a prior date, we've done a partial lead service replacement at that address, they would be eligible for this program as well. Now, that would not be a requirement. That this is separate from the ordinance itself. This is a program that the Menasha Utilities Commission approved last commission meeting, and we're in the process of closing, hopefully to close in November on the loan and have it ready come spring when we start the main. And Menasha Utilities will rebate property owners 50% of the cost to replace the owner's portion of the lead service up to $1,000. And then if the homeowner qualifies for any energy assistance based on family income, Menasha Utilities will rebate 75% of the cost to replace the owner's portion of the lead service up to $1,500. Now, this is 2015 data, and basically what we used for the data was these incomes are what qualify for energy assistance paying their electric bills. So it's very easy for us being an electric and water utility to have this data available to us and know what residents would be fit this to qualify for the higher percentage. There are a few state requirements with the money. We would be required to develop a list of pre-approved contractors that qualify to replace the lead services, and they must meet the federal standards of the Davis-Bacon, American Steel and Iron, or the service replacement will not be eligible for the rebate. Now, they're still working out all the details, but basically the Bacon Davis is a prevailing wage law that's pretty common with municipality contracts, so they'd have to meet the prevailing wage. And American Steel and Iron just means they'd have to use American-made copper or plastic or whatever they're replacing the service with when it was done. The Menasha Utilities Commission recommends passing the lead service replacement ordinance, and along with that, we will be implementing our lead service replacement program. Additional support, the Menasha Health Department supports the development of the program to replace lead service lines, protect public health by attempting to eliminate the public drinking water supplies. That's from Todd Drew. The CDC says the most important steps parents, doctors, or others can take is to prevent lead exposure before it occurs. Question?
Thank you very much, Tim, for coming in tonight and giving us that PowerPoint. Certainly, the numbers are not where we want them when we see 11 parts per billion, and we appreciate you guys being as active as you can in this. And obviously, no one wants to pay $1,000 or $1,500 out of pocket. It looks like you guys are going to great ends to make sure that that gets reduced as much as possible. So thank you. Are there any questions? Alderman Nichols, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gose, for being here this evening. I think that making Menasha a lead-free community is a good, positive goal for Menasha. And I want to thank you for the work and the time that you've put into this already. I know we had a conversation on the phone today, and we talked through a lot of the things that were on the presentation, and I had gone back through the minutes that are available on the utilities website and saw reference to it as early as January of 2016, but you said that it's been longer than that.
Yeah, it was late 2014 we actually started talking about it.
Okay. So it's been a while, and I really appreciate you bringing this issue to the forefront. I have a few questions about some information in the presentation.
Okay.
And then I'm going to shift to the ordinance itself. So you mentioned that that the utility estimates that there are 12 to 1,500 lead services in the city.
Yes.
And you feel like you have a good handle on that, or some work needs to be done?
Well, to be honest with you, I really hope that we're estimating high, but I know there are a lot of lead services. I mean, I know down in the section of town that I live in, there's a lot of lead services down there. And a lot of the older sections there are. You know, it's really tough to get a concrete estimate because they use several different types of material back even earlier. Now, Milwaukee's fairly easy. They had a law that they had to use lead service, so they're all lead services. You know, we didn't have that here. So there was, we know we've ran into houses that were built one right alongside of it has built the same year and it's got a lead service, and then the one next to it has a copper service. And it was built the same time. So really the only way we're gonna know is to go and look.
Okay, and you're planning to go and look starting next year, 2017?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be doing door-to-door surveys,
Right.
actually inspecting people's connections?
And we will actually, when we sent out that, because when we finalize our 2017 mains that we're gonna replace, then we will also send out letters to all those homes that are on the streets that we are replacing. And part of that informational letter will request that we're allowed to come in and inspect the service so we can determine for them what type of service they have and get a count on the streets themselves that we're going to be replacing.
Okay, and can you tell us more about what parts of the city are really impacted by this?
It's really from probably 9th Street to London and then east, southeast, because the older sections of town, you know, because it was houses built in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s early 50s are gonna have the lead service.
Okay, and you have an idea of what streets you'll be working on next year. Do you know how many people would be eligible for the program that's been developed?
We do have a fairly good idea, but I didn't bring that information with me, and I don't remember all the streets that are, we actually, when we received the money, we went back in and kind of changed up a little bit of some of the streets we did because we wanted to move to areas when this money was available that we thought would have more lead, so we did some of that. I know I believe there's some on area of Broad Street and a couple on the island that we're gonna do, a couple of the small streets that actually, they also have a 4-inch main, so they're pretty old, and we'll update that as well as then there's lead services over that area. But off the top of my head, I do not remember all the streets, and I didn't bring that information. I can get it for you, and email it to you if you would like.
That's all right. And you said that the utility has offered to folks in the past who are getting their street redone the information that now might be the time to replace your connection. Do you have an idea of how many people took advantage of that opportunity?
28 people in the last 5 years.
Okay, 28 folks over the last 5 years.
And I would guess that's probably half of the lead services that we ran across at that time.
Okay. So roughly 50% over the last 5 years?
Yes.
Okay. So that's my questions about the program, so to speak. My concerns with the ordinance kind of stem from those questions. And one of my main concerns about the ordinance itself is the burden that it will place on the homeowner. And you and I had a
Yes.
conversation about that, so could you speak to that for us?
I mean, that's one of the main things that concern both the utility commission and our staff was how would it impact the residents of Menasha. And that's why we were really looking for a funding. Now, with this funding, we got $300,000, and we do know that there's going to be funding available next year. They have not, to this date, laid out the requirements of how you qualify to receive the future funding. But I mean, we're putting ourselves in place to apply for additional funding in the following year as well. But it's, you know, there's no guarantee that we'll get that funding in 2018. But the positive things is that as I've been to conferences and around, I mean, the main topic of conversation in the water industry is lead services. And it's not only that they need to be changed, but that there's got to be financing out there to help people to get them changed, because it's not just a problem in Menasha, it's a problem everywhere. And there does seem to be a lot more interest from both the DNR, who they went out of their way to get this program. I mean, they had $11 million, and there was 14 million requests for up to $14 million that went in, and they actually went and got $3 more million and gave everybody who applied the money for lead services for 2017. So there does seem to be a much more willingness in government, the state and the federal level to try and come up with some fundings, but there's, in 2 years, who knows, I mean, I can't say, guarantee there's gonna be funding. I mean, we looked at several different ways. I mean, if there's, other ways, combined with the city or something, we can, to fund it after this money is gone, or, I mean, we're willing to work any way we can. I mean, our main goal is to really start getting rid of the lead services.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, and my concern with the funding is that it's not a guaranteed source right now. And you mentioned in your presentation that we're also at a transition point in evaluating past practices of doing a partial replacement and how that probably isn't a good idea anymore. And then talk around, in the trade is that the federal government might be working on tightening those limits, and with that probably will come a requirement to take action. And usually when that happens, there's also a huge pool of funds made available for communities to do that sort of thing. And so the ordinance, I think with the program that the utility has established is a good program. However, my concern is that it's not sustainable. That's what I question because of the funding mechanism there. So, and we are requiring property owners to come up with, I'm going to speak in roughly round terms, $1,000
Yes.
to do this on fairly short notice. If we say we're ripping up their street and replacing the main, then you're required to do this. And I think we know people in our neighborhoods who would struggle to do that, and I think that there's probably a few of us right here around this horn that would struggle to do that in short order, to have that done. And so my concern with this ordinance is the burden that it places on homeowners, and whether or not the program is sustainable for the long term. And as Mr. Ghost stated, we think we have a grasp on the scope of the problem, how many lead connections we still have in the city, but we know that there's more work to be done to make sure that those numbers are rock solid and a fair representation of the problem. And you and I also discussed briefly today whether or not you need the council to approve this ordinance to go forward with your already established program.
Right. We will continue the program without the lead service ordinance, but then we run into the drawback is that if we have people that refuse, then we're there to, then we got to make the decision, are we going to do a partial lead service, or even just hooking our side of the lead service to the main is going to increase the lead in that hole. So
Is there a way that you can explain, that the utility can explain that to the customers?
And we have, and we do. That's what we've done in the past, and several have, did it. There was a couple where the whole thing cost them $800. It wasn't nearly as expensive, depending how, I guess, a big front yard's nice, except if you got a lead service, because that means it goes a long way. So if you have a short run between the curb stop and your house, it really reduces the price, because they usually charge so much a foot, and I believe last time it was like $27 a foot. that they charge to pull the lead in, or to pull the plastic in and remove the lead. You know, one thing we've been working on too with the city is to better coordinate our long-term planning with streets and mains. It's been difficult because of the transition of personnel and stuff, but it's something that we're really been trying to work with is to try and, so we can have a 5-year outlook, so that the people, you know, try and be a little more, have the plan out there for a ways in. But it's been difficult because, you know, things change, like with all the construction project. I mean, all of a sudden they want you to do this street or that street, and so we've been kind of run back and forth, but we're really been looking to better forecasts and have it out there that we're going to be doing this street in this year and that year, and it's something that is one of our goals to get better at.
And I think this issue in particular lends itself very well to working on that relationship and that communication. And in my mind, it is a public health issue, and a public health issue needs to be addressed to some point by the city as well. That's my feeling on that. And the water utility seems to have a short-term fix here. They have some funds available to do some work that could help some people. And I think that we as the city council have a real opportunity here to really make a difference in people's lives, and I think that we need to take a step back from this for just a minute, for just a while, and invest the time to get this right for the health of the city and the future of this program, getting this program off and running and completed. And so I'm going to make a suggestion, and the suggestion is a motion that we refer the ordinance back to the Utility Commission with the direction to work with the city staff and some representatives, at least one representative from the Common Council and the Utility Commission, to develop a plan that's evidence-based, that describes the scope of the problem. In other words, better identifying how many lead laterals we have, how long we think it would take to get those replaced, and so on. It identifies a timeline then, and steps to resolution, and then draft an ordinance that stems from that plan.
Okay. I'm looking at the motion as it's written here, so would that be an amendment instead of a motion?
I don't believe there was a motion on the table.
There was no
Mr.
motion on the table?
Chairman.
Okay. All right, it's been a
Oh, I'm
while. All right.
sorry.
Attorney Wade?
Yeah, I believe what you have is a motion to refer it back to committee,
Okay,
so it's not an amendment to the ordinance at this point, it's just a referral back.
gotcha. My mind
Is how I
wandered.
interpret the,
No, that's right, thank you. My mind was wandering during all that. Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second? No second. So the motion fails. Back to the original ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead. Alderman Collier.
For the 4th district, I have a lot of landlords present in my district. When you come across landlords and you address this issue with them, how did they come across to you, or what interest do they have in doing anything?
I really have not come across too many as up to this point. The areas that we have done in the past few years have been pretty much residential and not a lot of apartments.
Well, if you do a street, there's...
There are,
Yeah.
but
Okay, my question, more or less what I'm coming to is, the 4th district is like you mentioned, one of the older, rougher districts. The streets are in rough shape, a lot of stuff, so maybe in the next X years, they would be coming this way, and if an ordinance passed, I have a lot of rental, I know I would have a lot of problems. If it says you gotta do it, all you're doing is passing the cost on to the renter, more or less.
Right.
And increasing the price to the people that are having a hard time staying here. I know lead's a bad deal. I know it's in housing and paint and everything else, and I wish we could, until we get ordinances across the state and in cities to have more teeth in something, and I'm working with that kind of stuff, but the funding scares me, and if we could, I mean, the federal government should be kicking in more, the state should be kicking in more, and until we get more, and I don't think we should, carte blanche free. I think if you went to somebody's house, they got 3 kids, you explain what's happening, they're gonna try to find a way to get this done. But in my district, I think I'm roughly close to 55% rental. So I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls and a lot of complaining one way or the other.
are a lot of them rentals, a lot of them rentals have children living in them? See, that's...
I'm gonna say over a third, no, that's a lot, and I'm concerned for the children, but a landlord, do you think you don't think they're gonna make a big stink over this?
I don't know. I guess I can't answer that, but I guess,
Well, how many apartment complexes have you changed over the last 5 years in Menasha?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, but I've had no landlords call and complain, or if we did, the people called, said, I take it back. I do know that one house on 4th Street was a rental, and they did replace the lead service at their cost. But and it was actually, I think it was a plumbing company in Neenah that owned the house. But they did replace the lead service. But I mean,
Alderman Zelinski.
As a plumber, I'm happy to see this come about, and it needs to happen, evidently, at some point, because most of the time when we run into them, the ball valve's just as old as, the gate valve's as old as the lead service, and they have more problems that come along. But I see it as a cost perspective. I think that's where Alderman Nichols is coming from, that it's going to affect some of these homeowners on this issue, that they're not going to have that, whatever, $1,000 to $2,500 to replace their service, but a water heater can go out nowadays, and that's $1,000. But this is a health concern, and you can't control when there's gonna be a problem that arrives from it. So I want to see this go forward either which way. But how is a landlord could they find a way to get some of this $300,000, or is it just relying on their income, or is it the income of the people, the tenant? Or
no, our program would be that if it's a rental property, they would be eligible just like
anyone else.
Anyone else. I mean, that they would, now generally the landlord's probably not going to be full income, that they would be the higher rates, but they would be able to get 50% up to $1,000 if they replace their lead services. So we're hoping that even the rental properties will step forward and change them, because they have a little incentive to do it. I mean, that's our hope.
Thank you.
Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for coming in tonight and doing this. This, of course, is a big issue. And a couple questions that I had is the non-rebated portion of the money that
Right.
somebody would be eligible for, what are the requirements for paying that back? So if they have 50 to 25% that they have to pay back, is that
Well,
something they have to pay up front or
That would actually, they'd have to work out with the
the contractor?
because
Okay.
what we would be like a third party in it. You know, we would give them the list of contractors and they would pick their contractor, have them change it. Now, once they show us the invoice that it's been changed, we would give them the rebate towards it or pay it towards it, you know.
Oh, that rebate is paid right up front then?
It
Okay.
can be, yes.
Yeah,
We-
okay.
That can be done, so they don't have to come up, you know, no, we can pay right to the contractor or however we determine to work. But yes, that way we're not gonna make them come up with the whole amount of money for a period of time and then we'd be willing, once we see the invoice that it's complete, we'd be,
Then you pay it back?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that I had is, and this might be a better question for our attorney, sorry. But because this is a limited amount of funds with potentially more available down the road, can there be a sunset put on this ordinance so that when the dollars run out, then the ordinance would no longer be in effect? Or if more dollars became available, then you could change the sunset date on this ordinance? there is a
There wouldn't
sunset
be,
date.
yeah, there's nothing prohibiting you from setting a sunset date within the ordinance to say that after a certain date, it wouldn't apply, include
Or
that
would it
as-
have to be a date, or could it be pending on the availabilities of the monies?
I think the difficulty is defining how that, how you're going to write the language to define that issue. But I would also tell you that if you pass the ordinance in some fashion and later determine that the funding isn't available, you'd always be able to come back and amend the ordinance as
ordinance at
well.
that time,
So
sure.
it sort of accomplishes
Oh.
the same thing without, it's an extra step of having to bring it back to the council.
It's just, yeah, sometimes that
Yeah.
usually becomes a crisis management or damage control time when that happens, that usually isn't as proactive as what it should be. But,
Sure.
Is that something that?
actually, that's something that we would really like, because, hopefully, like I said, that we could get the funding from the next year and, we could keep it going. And we could still have the committee. And I think that's a great idea to try and get together with the different agencies involved and come up with a plan that's sustainable for the future so we can keep this thing going. But this would give us a start.
Yeah, I certainly think that, I definitely wouldn't be in favor of waiting another year or two until we get all of our statistics in line and determine, and I completely identify everything that's out there, where in the meantime, we're doing replacements and we have the ability to invest money from, grant dollars, whatever, interest-free dollars, and and start making an impact right away. I think that's really important that we do that, but I think at some way we need to identify that item that I was talking about, or possibly, or even within ourselves, say that when the money's coming out, we're down to 15% or something left, that we come back and either, if we don't have monies coming, then we need to do something with this ordinance. But,
We'd be willing to do that.
okay, thank you.
Attorney Wade? Oh, never mind. Who do we got here? Should be you, right? Are you trying to get in?
Sure.
All right. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. I'm looking for a little clarification because I'm confused about what I'm hearing here. Am I hearing a willingness to enact an ordinance and then say, okay, the money's gone, we're not going to enforce that ordinance right now? Or am I hearing we're gonna wait to develop a more sustainable, comprehensive program before enacting an ordinance?
Not sure. Go ahead. Alderman Collier.
I myself prefer to wait until I see how the numbers would come out, who would be eligible and how, because I don't see how a landlord, because if a landlord owns a duplex or one of our up and downs that we have in our district, I'm gonna think it's gonna be based on his income and not the people that's living there. And because of that, I can see the landlord in our districts, not, my district, not getting this stuff done because they don't want to put the money up. And then I can see if they do it, my tenants and people moving out or having other problems because of it, although they'll have better water and things will be safe for Menasha. I agree with that 100%. But I'd like to see the second one go back to the committee, try to figure out the funding a little bit so I understand it and who's really eligible, and then go with that.
Alderman
Well-
Benner.
Can I address that?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Goes.
The program that is approved by the Utility Commission. So any homeowner in the city of Menasha that we're changing the main in front of their house is eligible for this program. Whoever owns the home is eligible. Or if at a different time we change our half of the service, that homeowner is eligible for this program. It really has nothing to do with the ordinance as far as whose eligibility right now, because this was money that was, it's really a safe drinking water loan that the utilities is applying for, and the utilities will not have to pay it back, so that's why we can use it for private property. And we already, the commission already approved that program, that it doesn't have to be it doesn't matter if it's a rental or a single-family home or a duplex, the homeowner is eligible for this program. And he can receive 50% up to $1,000 unless the homeowner can show that he is low income, then it would be 75% up to $1,500. It's a very simple program and it's straightforward. That's who's eligible. I mean, whether they enacted the ordinance and had a sunset when that money's gone, then it went away, it doesn't affect how the utility program is going to be administrated. The big difference would be that if we run and there was a landlord that had a house there, he would have to change his lead service. He would be required to if we're doing the main, but he would also be eligible to get at least 50% of that back up to $1,000.
So what you're telling me is, if I own a duplex and I'm renting it out, and you come over to Paris Street to tear it up and put in some new lines, you're gonna tell me that my service is gonna be changed?
If it's lead, yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Alderman Zelinski.
How will they be charged if they say, no, I don't want it, and you guys throw
Well,
it in
if they
there?
say no, they want it, and I mean, the ordinance would have the same ability, like if
Any
you don't
other-
pay your bill, I mean, you would.
Throws it
we
on
could-
taxes or-
We could cut their water off.
That too, okay.
That it's, we're not allowed to, we're not gonna send water through a lead service. It needs to be changed when we're changing them, and if not, we shut the valve.
Okay.
We have,
Alderman Collier.
we have lead paint in the houses in Menasha. Are we gonna make an ordinance to make everybody paint their house every 3 years so it stays contained? I'm just asking a
The
question.
the water's not gonna.
Any further discussion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Again, I'm still seeking clarification as to what our intent here is this evening. Based on the conversation that I've heard, is the intent to pass an ordinance this evening requiring folks to replace their lead service line until the money is gone and then retract an ordinance? Or is the purpose, or am I hearing that we want to wait on actually approving an ordinance until we have more information about the scope of the problem?
From what I've heard, and this is my clarification, and I've been wrong before, from what Alderman Benner says, all the discussion has been to approve the motion, or to approve the ordinance that is written as is until a date where the money had run short, or a certain time, a percentage, and then to revisit the ordinance and possibly add an amendment is kind of what I heard. Alderman Benner.
Yeah, my mindset, and maybe Mr. Goes can help out, but I was thinking, once the money got down to about 25% remaining or something, come back and let us know the status of additional funding or anything like that in case we need to revisit this ordinance. But I think this is something that needs to happen, and this, I don't know how fast the money is going. Is that
Do you know
give
when,
you time to react?
You have a time frame of when the 2018 funding, it's usually mid-2017, when they tell you who's going to get the money in 2018? So we would know on the 2018 funding by late summer of 2017.
If there was more available?
For the following year, yes, because there is money, there's money available that's for 2017, and we have, at this time, we have 2 years to spend that $300,000. But they're also coming up with spending or money in 2018, and we are in the process of applying it. Applying for it. They just haven't yet defined how to qualify for it. Now, the last time, with the state drinking water funds, you go through and answer questionnaires, and each question, depending on how your answer is worth a point. And at the end, they'll say, okay, anybody with 15 points or 30 points or more is eligible for this funding. And the last time it was 30 points, and we had 30 points, so we were eligible for the funding and we got it. But they have not come out yet with what eligibility they're gonna have for the 2018, so we don't know that yet. They're in the process right now of putting that together.
Well, I guess from my perspective is if we had to recommend a dollar value to say that this is where we're at, be it $25,000 or something, we're down to $25,000, so we want to bring this back to the table and revisit the ordinance at that point, is that a safe dollar value that would
Sure.
allow us to continue with whatever we have going on and give us a month to respond to it?
I think it would, yes.
Okay. Does that sound, look like it'd be an appropriate thing, Attorney Wade, or do I gotta shut my light off? Oh.
No.
Attorney Wade.
In terms of, are you asking whether to amend, put specific language in the ordinance to do that, or just to offer that direction to the utility so that it is, so that they know to bring it back when it gets to that point?
That's kind of where I'm looking. Is that something that we actually need to codify and put in the ordinance, or is that something that we can just rely on as a caveat to the utility to bring back to us? So does it have to be part of the ordinance, or can we just say that when we reach $25,000, that they need to bring it back to us?
No, I don't.
Does that need to be amendment or part of this?
It doesn't need to be included within the ordinance, in my opinion. But I would say that, you know, if you're going to pass or, you know, make your motion when you go to council, whether it's, at this point, you're referring to council.
Correct.
So, you know, if you could make the motion to refer this to council along with instruction to Menasha, I think that would be an appropriate motion without actually amending the ordinance.
Okay.
I don't, if that answers your question.
And we could amend the ordinance at any time we wanted.
Well, we can, but I think just, if that works for the utilities to say that that is a directive, it's not necessarily part of the ordinance, but that's a directive, is that it has to come back to us if the funding gets down to $25,000. I don't know I just don't know if that's the cleanest, most appropriate way to do it. Mr. Mayor, would you like to chime in and give your opinion, or Clerk Galeazzi, either one? You need me to shut my light off, or?
I think so. Yeah. Mayor Marcus?
You could do it either way, in my opinion, as well. I have some concerns about the way the rebate program is structured. I think that we should be first looking to provide safe drinking water to all of our residences, should be the number one goal. But I think the number two goal should be to support the people that have decided to invest in our community and make this community their home. And I think their percentages should be higher for rebates than businesses, quite frankly. So I do have some concerns with that. I mean, we're looking at $4.5 million to replace all the services if we're looking at an average cost to those services. So this is a small amount of that. Yeah. So that's my biggest concern, though. I think that we've been trying to find ways to support people that are homeowners in our community, and this should be another one of those things that we should be looking to support our homeowners and find a way to provide more incentive to those people as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, and I don't know where the numbers came from other than from the Utility Commission, but of the approximately 1,100 services that we suspect need to be replaced, this is 250 of those. Well, this dollars, no, it's really not, because of the rebate. The way the rebate is, it could be as much as 300 or so. But you have to start somewhere, and we're identifying with what we're starting to do construction on, and as more money comes up, you know, if we can identify those that we're replacing, that we need to replace the city portion of that main, I think we need to start somewhere and start doing those and start getting this fixed. This lead in the water issue is a huge issue. Certainly, we know that it's become a national attention getter at this point, but we need to do something. And if I don't disagree with you, does that mean that, from your opinion, that it should go back to the water utility and try to get more dollars for it? Or I'm kind of curious what your thought is as far as what those numbers might look like.
Mayor Marcus?
We talked a little. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at the last commission meeting. I think some of the things that the utility itself wanted to do were very positive. Unfortunately, the PSC wouldn't allow that. The biggest one being to have some sort of revolving loan program for our customers. That was just something they wouldn't allow us to do. As hard as Tim and Melanie tried, they were not budging on that. But I guess I would prefer to see the percentages be incentivized towards homeowners, and that's what I was recommending. Like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at that last commission meeting. So you could send it back to them. They don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be attached to this ordinance. I like your idea of once the money runs out that the ordinance would sunset. I think that's a great idea, because then it would again encourage us to look at other ways to continue finding more money, and we may have money for 10 years if the DNR keeps renewing this program. I think that Alderman Nichols' suggestions are good though too, knowing exactly where all the lead services are and how long they are and what our real dollar value is to get this problem under control and removed. I never asked you, Tim, are we requiring copper, plastic? What are the options? I want to make sure that we're not putting plastic pipe in there that 10 or 15 years down the road, we're going to have the same concern about plastics leaching into our.
Right. I don't, it's really up to the utility as far as that's not part of their requirements. The state is leaving it up to the communities to determine how they.
So what are the options that we could use?
It would be plastic or copper. I mean, that's what we would have right now.
Those are the two options. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The one, if I could, one of the reason that we went with the program the way we went with it, as far as it's a utility program, I mean, and it's not tied into the ordinance. So if at any time the utility commission chooses to redo the way it's funding lead services, that can happen at the utility commission as well. So it's not tied to, I mean, there's nothing in the ordinance that explains how this program works for the utilities. So, I mean, if at a later date they want to relook at how that money is given to the, you know, that's something that's an option.
Alderman Benner?
Tim, what's the urgency on this ordinance the way it is right now? Because we really won't be doing those replacements until next spring, right?
There's no urgency until next spring. You're exactly right. I mean, we've been working at it for 3 years in the commission, and we finally got it out of the commission. So I thought, well, this is okay. 3 years in the commission, about 4.5 in the council. I thought maybe, but you know, so no. But there is no.
When does the commission meet again?
Pardon?
When does the commission meet again?
Fourth Wednesday of the month.
So there's time to go back and talk about it one more time. I'd like to make, what if we leave this with no action, it'll come back? Or if I make a motion postpone until after the utility commission meets again, then bring it back, is that appropriate? I think I'll what would that date be, that meeting after the utility commission meets again?
No, not anymore.
November 7th is our first.
After that?
Yeah, because commission meets, what, Wednesday, which is like the 26th, and then we meet on November 7th.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to postpone this until the 11/7 Board of Public Works meeting.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
The only thing is, I guess I'd just be looking for you to share with the commission the few things that we discussed, see how they respond, let the mayor give his input. You'll be at that meeting, right? Let the mayor give his input as far as how he looks at the numbers, and then to get it back here and get some action going on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. I was going to ask for a reason why we were sending it back to the commission, because I'm confused about the message that we're sending here regarding an ordinance. And so I'm not sure if we're looking to send it back to commission to talk about the plan itself, because in my mind that's not on the table. What's on the table is the ordinance. So what would we want to accomplish for the ordinance if we send it back to utility commission? Oh, if we postpone it for another day, what are we looking for them to come back with?
I myself would like to see how this funding's gonna work just not, and I understand that you've been there, you've talked to it, you see how it's gonna work, but something, I gotta look at it, take it apart, ask you more questions later again, and then try to find out if I can figure out a different ordinance that'll be more beneficial for the whole city than, say, because I want my streets fixed, and then if they fix the laterals too, but I don't want this to blow up in my face either. So until I understand who's gonna get the money, I'm gonna give you people with income on my block or my district that got this much, will they get what back on a percentage? And you can explain that to me, I'll give you 10 names, because I know I got lead pipes. And I know there's lead pipes next door to me. I got an old block. So until I get more information, I'm kinda stuck. I'm sorry if I'm slow on this, but that's how I feel.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you for that, Alderman Collier. I think this is a good opportunity to start the conversation and start weeding our way through some information and hopefully working on a common resolution to the issue.
All right, I believe we have a motion and a second to postpone until, do we have a date? November 7th. Board of Public Works. Let's take a roll call vote.
Motion carried on roll call 6-0.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Goes. Appreciate it. All right, all of that, and we are on action item number 2, which is actually number 7, which is proposed.
Mind.
Go ahead, Alderman Nichols.
Were you on number 7?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're going to, no, we were on number 5. We're moving to number 7.
May I offer a suggestion, Mr. Chairman?
Go for it.
Would it be possible, we have another item number 3 regarding Menasha Utilities.
Yes.
And I think we have some
Oh, yeah.
folks here
Why
for
don't we-
that, if we just want to stick with the utility
Why
theme
don't-
for
why
a
don't
few
we
more
do
minutes,
that?
if those folks don't mind.
Let's keep it a nice theme, like Mr. Goes wasn't up here
Thank
enough.
you.
Thank you, Alderman Nichols.
Not involved in this one.
All right, all right.
I'll let you know there's no lead in this.
All right, wonderful. We are on action item number 3. It's a recommendation to award Midway Underground Loop Project to J&R Underground in the amount of $154,756.25, and that's the Menasha Utilities.
The Midway Loop project is a multi-phase project of looping the electrical underground services over in the Province Terrace area, across Oneida and up to Midway, which is a radio fed system now. So if that feed ever goes down, there's no other way we can feed power back into that system. So this project is the beginning phases of connecting our north side substation into our metal substation to feed that area. This will make that connection. The following phases will install additional conductors for higher ampacity so that we could feed the entire substation from north side if needed.
Thank you. Any discussion? A motion? Alderman Benner, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, make a recommendation to award Midway Underground Loop Project to J&R Underground in the amount of $154,756.25, Menasha Utilities, and that's to be forwarded to council.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Take a roll call vote, please.
Thanks.
Motion carried on roll call 6-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we're going to number 7. which is a proposed lease agreement between the Menasha Joint School District and City of Menasha, 100 Main Street, Menasha. Mayor Marcus, would you like to give us some information on this, please?
I can start out. We also have a few representatives from the school district here. Brian Adesso, as well as Dave Elliott is here. Rob Conser is from the school board here as well. Observing, okay. So within your packet, there is some of the material terms and conditions of the lease that Attorney Captain put together before she left. It includes the lease premises, what we're looking at leasing, and also the rent. And it's based on both shared spaces and exclusive use spaces. It includes a fixed 5-year period at that price. After 5 years, those rents could change based on CPI, depending, and it's basically allowing for the school district to recover their costs. They are looking at providing all utilities, all maintenance. We'll never have capital improvements projects again if we are in that building rather than this building, which we are actually doing all of our improvements to. That would be included in the lease. Snow removal, also cleaning would be included in that lease, as well as our lights, heat, those sorts of things. We are looking at a backup generator that would just serve the health department because we have some specialized vaccines that have to be refrigerated. I was trying to figure that out without thinking about needles, as well as some of our IT. We would have a 30-year term. After 10 years, either of us would be able to look at terminating that term with notice. We would be responsible for the initial build-out, as well as our furnishings and fixtures. If you look beyond that, there are 2 pages that show what the proposed floor plan would look like. We've been working with Blue Design Group as well as the school district to put together a plan for both the first and the second floor. The first floor would house the health department, some storage space, some shared meeting space, a shared lunchroom, as well as school district space for registration and some other interpreter and some server space, and that main lobby. The second floor would kind of house all of our faces of the community, all of our admin staff around that central, it's called corridor lobby space. So no matter who you were looking for, when you walked onto second floor, you would be able to find that person or be directed easily without having to go to a different area. So you can see finance, parks, the clerk, the community development, and public works all have a face along that front, and then the office space behind. There's some shared conference spaces back there. There's areas for copy space and workspace, and then there's also 2 conference rooms and a storage space out in that lobby that would be used by the public. So this is the plan that we're looking at. Alderman Collier stopped in a little earlier this morning and asked Director Stinos for some information on the costs and the cost benefit of doing this. So I did put together a spreadsheet that I gave to everyone earlier to help answer some of his questions. So the top line is the current costs of our different areas. The health department's total cost is about $36,000 per year if you're looking at rent and other utilities that would be included in the new lease. City Hall runs us about $73,000 per year. These are all costs that would be eliminated except for the wages and benefits. The $10,000 wages and benefits is for Brian Hazley, who is our electrician. He would be spending less time, hopefully, in that new building than he is in this building because the school district would be taking care of most of that, so that would be shifted. His responsibilities would be shifted elsewhere. So that is the only number that we wouldn't be completely eliminating. The third row is capital improvements that we need in this building. These are costs that we would have to incur to stay in this building. And if you add those numbers up, that's about $280,000 between elevators, boilers, things like that. So those wouldn't be done in 1 year, but they would need to be done over the next several years. And if you look at the second row, we're looking at build-out costs. The school district is working on pricing it. They have gotten, I think, some of the initial bids. Brian Adesso assures me it will be $350,000 or less for the build-out of the space as drawn. We've included some money for furnishings. We would expect to bring all the furnishings, well, not all, but the vast majority of the furnishings from here. But there are some areas that the furnishings really are not sufficient for the uses that are being used with them. And of course, our very high-tech voting system that would probably not come with us. We have gotten some demos on how to do better voting systems that could be done with a projection system and computer equipment. So that those build-out costs are about $400,000. If you look in the very far right-hand corner, it shows our current costs for our 2 spaces at $110,000, proposed costs at $70,000. We'd be saving about $40,000 a year. The build-out costs, difference between the two, we'd have a return on investment in about 3 years. We're staying here versus moving to Harbor Place. The center column just shows some of the existing square footages that we have. So the current health department is about 2,700 square feet. The three stories that we occupy in City Hall are about 13,000 square feet. So we have about 16,000 square feet current office space, another 4,000 square feet of storage space in the basement in this building that we use very inefficiently, that we could definitely pare down a little bit. If you look at Harbor Place, you'll see the office space numbers are about 20,000 square feet and the storage space is closer to 1,000 square feet. So if you add those up, the 2 buildings are roughly the same size. It would just be that we'll be using the spaces a little bit differently. I don't know if I covered the vast majority of it, Brian or Dave? I hit all the good points that you had. So if anyone has questions as to either myself or anyone else or the school district, we'd be happy to answer those questions.
Alderman Collier, go ahead.
If we go forward and go work with the school system on this, we're gonna end up probably selling the building as is, or do something. Okay, we're not gonna put no more money in this if we move. So if we're saying just a ballpark figure, it'll cost us $400,000 to move down there. We're saving $30,000 a year. So I could stay here for 9 years and maybe call it a wash, or try to do something with this property and maybe the next door or something else. Okay. And the only other thing is if we could change the building for the school board to rent every 6 years, and after, term 30 years for the party agreeing to terminate the lease after 10, have it after 12, and go for 6 years for five times instead of 6, you know what I'm saying? And increase the board adjustment annually after 5 years, so it would be after 6 and then after 12. Because I like those numbers, how they'll work out for us better. And if that can be worked out, I think it's a good deal.
Any further discussion, questions? Alderman Zelinski.
Plenty of questions for this, but I guess some of my ones right off the bat, I wish I could have got these numbers a while ago and they're explained more, but as in us joining with the school district, I guess it would be for you guys, what benefits will you reap from us as City Hall being with you guys? Besides, initially I recognize the health department and most of your work is done with the high school and whatnot, and I wish you guys could have moved into the new high school even, but what other benefits is our City Hall going to reap from being combined with you guys?
Mr. Adesso, could you come up to the microphone? Thank you.
I see how we would benefit from the agreement, as we all want a better city, and the school district is a big part of that city, and we want to work closely with the city on helping our residents. And we have a lot of data on residents, and you have a lot of data on residents, and I hope that both government entities can form a synergy there, and will generate long-term savings for the taxpayer.
So, just looking at these numbers, this isn't a question for you, by the way, but there's some of these that are still unanswered, like nothing's set in solid, as you've said before, because you got these wages and benefits that have been, the numbers that have been changed, and there's certain aspects like part of the cell phone equipment. I see equipment on the top of this roof that has to be moved, I guess, apparently to facilitate what's going on here. What's the cost in that? What's the cost in this building sitting empty? From my perspective, we have no plans for our current city hall, do we? Does community development have anybody looking at this building to buy it or rent it out? Or I guess that'd be a question for you, Mr.
Director
Buck.
Buck?
Currently, no.
So-
Obviously, it hasn't been marketed or even put out there since we're not actually moving yet.
So couldn't we market this before we move into the new building? And get this sold and get this, or a TIF created, or whatever you see fit for this building, instead of having it sit here for, because I see utilities cost a lot of money, and then we have to sit with this building vacated and pay for heat, electric, plumbing. Is that an option to, or is this time restraint that we got to move in there right away? Can we get this building, something figured out with this, instead of having it sit vacant for who knows how many years?
No, we can look at redevelopment of the site or reuse of the building at any time. Right? I can't answer how fast somebody will respond or
Of
be
course.
interested in the building, but sure.
I don't know, council leans toward that. It sounds like it wants to be just pushed through, but there's I have little information on the new building, because all I have is a couple of numbers and a couple of drawings that we were never asked for even a tour of the place. So from what I can go off of, I can't see voting for this to bring it forward, because there's so many blind costs to this that I still can't dissect it from what I've been given here right before the meeting, so I can't see myself voting for it.
Thank you, Alderman Zelinski. Any further questions or comments? Mayor Marcus?
I just want to comment on the idea of marketing this building, and I think on staff and my part to market the building before the council has determined if we want to move would be irresponsible for us. We can't do that without direction and have City Hall be homeless. So the first direction would be to actually be looking at leasing that building before we would start looking at what we would do with this building. I would hate to have this building sold and then have that project not go through. So we need to look at them kind of in tandem together.
Alderman Zelinski?
It just still seems like we're going out this without a plan, and we could always put restrictions on her when we're selling this building that we have to find a new place. To find a new place to move into, it doesn't look very hard. We got that place for lease, building over here for lease, so I don't see that as a reasoning. I think there's ways around that, and we can find a place to stay in the meantime. But I could see where you're coming from, that you don't want to see be homeless, but I don't think that would happen if we went off this strategically.
Any further discussion or questions? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. Mr. Adesso, I really appreciated your comments addressing the high resident debt from both the school district and the city at this point, and you talked about the possibility of some synergies being created by this opportunity. So could you tell us more about what those possible synergies could be, what you look forward to working on?
I guess I see things similar to like we're already working with the street department. They service our vehicles. We get our fuel from the street department. We're able to use some of their vehicles and share workloads like that. So I envision more of those things coming forward that helps both parties out.
Okay. Do you have any specific ideas in mind, or just working together collaboratively to find those?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, when I think of I have questions about, obviously the utilities would be included in our rent, and does that include things like the internet service and those sorts of things where we can share those?
You would still have your own internet service. I'm pretty sure we can't share that per the WISCNet agreement that we currently have. So each entity has to have their own service. But we are looking at sharing the wireless infrastructure. So we would have one wireless network that you wouldn't have to pay for.
Okay, and phone?
Phone, we've had discussions. I don't believe the city's at that point right now.
Those are things that just, simple things, like low-hanging fruit that come to mind for me, and the bigger things I think will be exciting as we, get used to working with each other and figuring out the things that we can do together. And from our point of view, I think we have to look at the cost of not doing it. I mean, there's always a cost to doing something, but there's a cost to not doing something as well. And so perhaps the mayor could speak to those costs.
Is that good? Oh, Mayor Merkus. Thanks, guys.
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to as the lost opportunity cost, but I think one of the big opportunities would be this building and what this space could be used for, how it could add to the vitality of the downtown with new people in this space, a redeveloped space that could potentially bring more retail and restaurant space into this area. But on the collaborative end, I think there's some great opportunities. Director Stino and Brian have been working quite a bit on health insurance, the Blue Jay Clinic. I mean, that was a huge thing for us. We're not sure if at some point health insurance together might make sense or not, but it's definitely something that we look at. Some of the HR items, we're working with utilities on our wellness programs. There's nothing to say that the school district and the city and the utilities couldn't all work on those things at some point. Superintendent, I'm losing his name. Vanderheiden. I was going to say Superintendent Chris has talked a little bit about our message out to the community and how we best describe what we are as a community, and we can't afford a person that can go out like Appleton has, that goes out and tells that story on a daily basis, but as an entity together, we may be able to afford that person. So improving that image, telling that story, getting people excited about our community, some of the data things that you talked about too, we see that's very effective in the health department when we can share data rather than creating two databases for the same people. So there's some great opportunities for us to work together there. Yes, there is going to be costs to do this, but I think that getting to know each other and using some of the ideas that we both have to make the community better. You'll notice that we put a single, it's just says called staff, but it's a single lunchroom down on the first floor next to the meeting spaces. And that was something, it's on the far right-hand top corner of the building on the first floor. And that was something that I asked for because the best way to start generating those ideas is sitting together and talking to each other and getting to know each other. And if you can do that at lunch, then other things will start to come out of those conversations when we get to know each other. So I think that this is going to be a very positive thing. It's going to provide better customer service to our residents as they come in. People tend to come in for school district as well as city things when they move into a city. Now they don't have to try to figure out 3 different buildings to go to as well. So those are some of the opportunities I see. There's a couple big things that we have to figure out. I think Alderman Zielinski had a good one, the moving of the cell tower. If this building goes away, we have to figure out how to deal with that cell tower that's directly above us here. But also the mural is another very big item that we have to figure out what would happen to that if we'd sell this building too. So there's some unanswered questions, but the first step is to say, do we think that there's value in working together as a school district and a city And does that value equate to the cost that it's going to have to do this and the savings that it's going to have over the long term? I mean, we do have to put at least $200,000 into this building in the fairly near future. Whether we stay here and put that $200,000 in this building, or we move to Harbor Place and put that $200,000 in that building, we have to spend that money. That's not an option. And if we could save $40,000 a year after we invest that originally, then that's a good thing for both of us long term.
Thank you. Alderman Zelinski.
As we talked about last time this came up in a July meeting, talked about the future plans of our city, and we're this late in it that we're getting the opportunity now to move in with our school district and how that aligned with our city plans. I thought there's much greater things that could be done in our city than $407,000 on the low end for build out to move over there, and we have all these unanswered costs here. I talked to my constituents and people from our city, and they say City Hall. I never knew there was a problem with our City Hall. Didn't know we had problems with communication. I heard in the meeting that we were getting with the time. We have to be in with the times and move in with them. And if we want to get in with the times, talking to a millennial, technology is the times. How often it's going to be easier for you to message something over to a computer than for you to get up and walk over. The times is technology. Less and less people will be coming here, coming to your school district as time moves forward. We're going to be buying our fire permits online, paying for our bills, taxes, and whatnot. I just think as a city of Menasha, yes, we want to give a good idea to our community that we're moving forward and we care about our school district, but at this price and what we have in debt and there's so much more we can do with this amount of money. But my, I guess, exact question would be, how does this amount, this dollar, that amount we don't know of, I guess $407,000, how is that going to fit into our budget as of right now? Is this going to be slid into our next, how much do we have budgeted for this?
Director Steno.
We don't have anything budgeted for because this isn't approved yet. So depending on what happens tonight, it would either go in or out of the budget. But there would be all of the operating costs, which are about $100,000 between the school district and the city and the health department that are in, and there would be at least $200,000 in the CIP. So you're looking at $300,000 probably either way in the 2017 budget.
I guess something to go along with the budget, not really on this object, but my father, when he's up here, he asked for budget updates. Are those coming about anytime soon? Because I think this is a big thing that's going to be coming along, and we should be updated on the budget to see where things are going.
Do you mean our financial statements?
Yeah, our financial, like a budget.
I actually gave you the first one ever a couple meetings ago.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions?
I think
Mayor
it's
Marcus.
important again to remember that this is saving us $39,000 a year. This isn't costing us more, it's saving us money after we get the initial build-out done. So after the first 3 years, we're saving $40,000 a year. It's not about staying here and not spending anything or moving there and spending more. It's about, do we want to stay here and spend what we're spending, or do we want to move over there and spend less? That's really what we're talking about here.
Thank you. Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, thanks for coming tonight. The question is the school committed to this with or without the city of Menasha?
Harbor Place?
Yes.
Harbor Place was purchased on July 18th, so
So yes, you're committed?
yes,
Right?
we're moving in.
Okay.
Pretty much in that.
Next question I had was, we had talked about, both I talked to you and the mayor about our conference room and the furniture for council chambers. Have we made any progress with that at this point?
After I've talked to you, I did a lot of searching, and it's pretty hard to find municipal furniture for some odd reason. There wasn't like a municipal furniture store or anything.
I don't think that was my suggestion, but.
But, you know, I found a lot of different solutions, and I think we can find a way to meet both of our needs to make the area presentable and up to the level that it needs to be, and also flexible for the 21st century and for ADA requirements. But I think we can get all the balances in there, in the room.
Okay. So I know you told me that you guys have talked about it, but does it seem like we're really gonna be able to do something with that? Can I have my light back when he's done?
No problem. Mayor Merkus.
So what Alderman Benner's talking about is the council chambers, and if you look on the first floor, you'll see three large, they're about 30 by 30 rooms, if I remember right, correct?
28 by 28.
Okay, pretty close.
28 by 28.
So they're L-shaped rooms, and these rooms would be used for training purposes for the school district, for the city council meetings that we're having here, for the school district meetings. They could be used by the community. They could be used for a multitude of things, and we'd like to make sure that those rooms are very flexible, but we also want to make sure that our boards have the presence that they deserve when we're having meetings like this. So what we've been talking about is creating some sort of furniture that would be movable, so that we could pull that in and out of that space depending on what it's being used for, but still be of 2 or 3 steps up from having tables or banquet tables or something like that, which is kind of what the school district currently does. So, and Brian thinks he can find some cabinetry that we could get made to do that might be made in such a way that it would be kind of modular, that it would be the right size for the school district or the council, depending on how many modules that you put together. The issue that we're having is if we could get it raised for ADA requirements without using risers, and how that might all work. So that's the only thing that we're not sure of, if we'd be able to have it up one step like we are here. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, I appreciate that, because when I first brought this up, the response was that the school board presently has tables, and it sounds very generic to me, you know, on face value. And that's just tables, and you sit in front of the gallery, and it's kind of like our department heads would be sitting here, we'd be facing the gallery like that. And certainly I had concerns with that from the integrity of the council and the school board, that we had something that better represented who we are. The next thing, I'm glad you answered the question on the 28 by 28, because I was looking at our existing space compared to the space that we'd have available to us, and concerned because our gallery gets full, not every week, but, you know, on a few times a year, and where it's standing room only and stuff. I wanted to make sure we had additional room to be able to seat additional people, and we do have more space, but it's not a lot of space, depending on how it gets laid out, on how we get positioned, because with the L, you know, you only have pretty much a straight shot, or however that is, you know, to actually be able to accommodate those additional folks.
And we were looking at putting the board and council at the middle
corner
of the L.
Yeah.
So then you could open up both rooms, and we should be able to seat over 100 people. Angry residents.
Okay. Hopefully not. Hopefully excited ones.
But you know, I mean, that was the kind of goal, and for our training, I mean, we're hoping that we can fit over 160 people down there that can bring economic development to the downtown.
But so that you'd be able to see from both directions, and probably in that corner.
Yes, and we'd be using technology to be able to, for people that are further back, they'll be able to see that.
Okay. Have we talked about a hearing loop or anything like that? Because that's on the first floor. There's no basement under here, right?
Correct. There's no
so
basement.
If you were to do a hearing loop or something for folks with hearing aids, you'd have to do it in the ceiling.
Yeah, that's what we currently do for our classrooms.
Are we putting a hearing loop in this space?
No, we don't know. We're not.
I think it's something we really should talk
We
about.
haven't made it that far yet. We're working with the designer right now with that current question of the chamber.
Would you get up to the mic, please?
We're currently working with Blue Design Group with that question of the chambers, how it can lay out here, what are some of our options to make a more prominent seating area there that's flexible, so.
Okay, because, you know, sometimes we get some folks in here with hearing problems. They have hearing aids, and they struggle hearing us up here, and a hearing loop would certainly be beneficial. And I think if we're going with, you know, obviously the more modern approach, one of the reasons we're moving, I think it's imperative that we do have a hearing loop in there. So, okay, well, that sounds like we're heading in the right direction on that. Next question I had, and I asked, this is probably more for the mayor, but I think you said we're taking our existing phone system from here and moving that. What about with the health department?
Same system.
It's the same phone system, and that's just going to move over there as well. And can we do that with our staff, or do we have to hire that out?
We believe we can do that with our staff and our consultant.
Okay. And from our future expansion, I talked to the mayor about this. He thought that we could move, if something happened with future expansion, we could move into our storage, some of our storage space. Have we identified where we would move our storage to if we did that? And I think
We have not at this point. There will likely be some new things happening out of Public Works at some point, though, that could accommodate storage, hopefully in the future, as we would update that building as well. A lot of this storage that currently is in the basement is long-term type storage that we access a couple times a year at best. So it could be off-site fairly easily in a storage type unit or another city-owned building if need be. Doesn't have to be in this building.
but at some level, I would assume that some of that would have to be secured, or is it just general storage stuff?
For the most part, just general storage things. Our HR records are stored within the HR department. I'm not sure what else. We have some health department things that are stored within the health department, but hopefully as time goes on, we'll also digitize more and more of these items. A lot of it is community development floor plans from past building projects for buildings all over the city that you never really look at again once they're approved. So hopefully those could be digitized and we could get rid of the hard copies of those then.
Well, some of that too, you can just store, just so you have it somewhere. Next question I had is with our existing furniture. Now, when I talked to you last week, you said that a lot of our furniture needs to be replaced because it really wasn't professional enough to move. And in here you have most of our furnishings staying in, but this 50,000 are you thinking that's just the difference between what we can take and what we need to replace?
Yes.
Okay. And for the public, the mayor said yes, but, and the next thing is did we give consideration or have we identified what it's going to cost to keep this building at 50 degrees or whatever it's going to take to maintain it or on a yearly basis and keep power on at all?
Adam Alex did do those numbers, and I did not bring those with me, but I could get those for you. Do you remember what they are, Peggy? No? Okay. He did get us some information on that, though.
Okay, then I think my last question for the school is, obviously there's some questions and concerns. What is the urgency with the school board right now for a decision from us?
The building goes to the plan review at the state on September 17th. October 17th. So we're trying to keep the build process moving. We're anticipating moving in the end of February. Just so.
You're moving in?
Correct.
And what about the availability of our space with the build out? I mean, we're responsible for a portion of our build out, but are you providing just a white box for us or something, and we build out from there?
We're coordinating the build out for both parties.
Oh, you are? Mm-hmm. Okay, so when your contractors come in and build out, the expectation is that you'd be doing the build out.
Correct.
For the city hall portion as well.
Correct.
So I assume you're getting fair market bids from contractors off the street, and then you're gonna pick one contractor to do the whole thing.
Correct.
That's it. Okay, thank you very much.
Any further comments or questions? Alderman Nichols, go ahead.
Thank you. One more question. The school board voted on this at their last meeting, correct?
That's
Could you tell us whether or not it was a unanimous vote by the school board to offer the lease?
Yes, it was almost positive it was unanimous approval.
All right, thank you.
And they approved it knowing that there would be changes from the city, because they knew that you guys haven't seen it, and the lease, and for all the insurance requirements too, just so you guys know, our risk manager knows that you guys are with CIVMIC, so we lined everything up to CIVMIC, and we tried to make the lease very favorable to the school district and the city, which drove our attorneys crazy. But we really tried to benefit both parties.
Just to add kind of a side note to all this, because I think the financial questions that Alderman Zelinski brought up are certainly valid. The time frame here, as it's been for a lot of our things, is pretty tight, again, to make decisions like this. This is coming from a teacher and a taxpayer with 2 children and a mortgage and cars and all that wonderful stuff, and an alderman who cares very deeply for his community. And we have some people in here that are going to need to do a very good job of marketing if this passes what just took place in about a month and a half. And on the school district side, we haven't done that. Unfortunately, on this side, if it passes, we're going to have a lot of work to do to make people realize what an opportunity this could be, and is, based on the numbers, the savings of $39,000 a year after 3 years, possible retail restaurant ability here, collaboration between the city and the school district, one-stop shop. I mean, there's a lot of positive things that the people who call me or stop me on the streets when I'm walking with my kids or at the park and telling me what's going on and how can you back that, and the stuff that, the questions I've had to take, so I can only imagine what everybody else has had to take over the last month and a half. They're very tough to answer as a teacher and then as a taxpayer and as an alderman, because of the timeframes and just the lack of transparency that really needs to take place, especially on the school district side, to say this is why the hometown school districts, or the school block districts, or whatever you want to call them, and the ELL combination, where we need those kids and the teachers and the relationships, or the schools that we're trying to create. We need to promote that so people don't look at this as why do we need it? They already know that type of stuff, and you guys have talked about it. I'm sure the school board goes back and forth over it. Progress is tough, and progress costs money sometimes, but I think when constituents know all of the reasons on why the school district wants to do this and all the reasons why the city wants to do this, and that comes together before the month and a half time frame that we have, it makes it easier, I think, on everybody when they have to explain, well, we have to explain why we voted yes or no to this. So a little more transparency, and certainly we're going to have a lot of marketing to do soon if this passes. It's a side note. Any further discussions or comments or questions?
I just want to say our superintendent did put something out right when this was to all the staff, and out on Twitter and Facebook and on the social media outlets. So we have been forthcoming on why we needed to do this.
Okay, I'm on staff, so I'll look for them. Go ahead, Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. I make the motion to forward to council the proposed lease agreement between Menasha Joint School District and the City of Menasha at 100 Main Street, Menasha.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have one more comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Nichols.
I have one more comment. I want to thank you for the work you've done in trying to create the best possible scenario for both yourselves and the city going forward. That shows a lot of dedication and commitment on your part, so that comes very appreciated.
Mayor Marcus.
I just wanted to clarify what I guess staff is looking for, and I'm thinking that's what this motion is. So what we would bring back to the council is an actual lease, not a term sheet like you have here. And I would also like, though, to bring back any of these FAQ type questions that you guys have. So if we could, anyone who has a question or wants more information on something, I'd be happy to coordinate that with the school district as well, and we'll try to get as many of those questions answered as we possibly can for the next meeting, so that you'll feel good about what you're doing and what decision you make, rather than saying, yeah, I want to do this or don't want to do this, but I still have these 6 questions. So
Right.
hopefully we can get those things put together ahead of time. So if you could get those to me as quickly as possible, I'd love to try to get those answers for you as well.
Absolutely. All right. Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Peggy, I forgot to ask you, as being the person who's manages our dollars, does this make sense from a financial perspective?
From the numbers I've seen up until this point, I think the decision is easy. We just have to make sure we manage our costs through the transition to make sure that it still makes sense at the end. But yes, as far as the operational costs, I don't have a question on those. I don't have the mothball state costs for this building. However, I believe there's still a savings involved if that happens. But like I said, I think we just need to make sure we manage our transition costs. And then yes, I do think it's a good idea.
And when this makes it to council, will we have a better idea on those costs at that point to make sure that they are manageable?
Yes, I'm told we will.
All right. I'll be looking forward to that. Thank you.
Alderman Nichols.
Do I need to reword my motion?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We had a motion and a second, I believe. Let's take a roll call vote.
Motion carried on roll call 4-2.
All right. Let me get my wits about me here. 5-7. 5's done. So we're looking at, why don't we go back to number 1. Action item this evening, which is a payment, number 2, to Vinton Construction Incorporated, Contract Unit 2016-01 for Downtown Street Walkway, etc., in the amount of $83,978.31. Mr. Merkus, do you want to give us, or sorry, Mayor Merkus, would you like to give us some information on that?
Yep, I'm just trying to, I moved my papers around and I was trying to make sure I had the right one. So this is the walkway from the parking ramp to Main Street, and Corey, our construction manager, and Vinton have been working together to get the final quantities taken care of for the payment that's going out here. There'll be one final payment. We are very close to budget. It looks like we'll be within $1,000, $2,000 of the expected budget. So there were a couple things that went over, but we're very close to the actual cost of this. And we should see that in the next 1 to 2 meetings as they finish that. And I can answer questions if anyone has any, or get those questions from Corey if need be.
Okay. Any questions? Alderman Zelinski.
Just a question on the walkway. Anytime, I saw in when it was going through about skate deterrents, are those still being installed, or are they already installed there? Or, because every time I go by, the only people I see people using it is for skateboarding.
Okay. So the skate deterrents are those little silver pieces that are on the curbs. They were installed with the concrete. There are not skate deterrents on the table itself, if that's what you're talking about, but on all the curbing there is. There's not skate deterrents on the benches or the couches because they're rough enough that they're not really useful. So that's all installed. Everything should be installed that will be in there now.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Nichols?
I'd like to make the motion. Move to forward to council payment number 2 of the Vinton Construction, Contract Unit 2016-01 for the Downtown street walkway and electrical improvements in the amount of $83,978.31.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Take a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 6-0.
All right, moving along here efficiently and effectively. Action item number 2, payment number 4 to Northeast Asphalt Incorporated, new street construction and reconstruction, etc. This is contract unit number 2016-02 in the amount of $102,126.99. And again, Mayor Merkus, do you have any information to share on that, please?
So this is the contract for our street construction projects this summer. They are within schedule and within budget. I believe the one that's still remaining is the trail along Manitowoc Road. Steve, is that finished yet? You go by every day? I don't think it is. Okay. Okay. So that's the remaining project that's still continuing. The bid specs require that these projects are done by the end of October. It's expected that they would all be done by the end of October, so they're all within budget and within schedule that we know of at this point.
Thank you, Mayor Merkus. Any discussion, questions? Then I'd entertain a motion to approve to council. Thank you, Alderman Nichols.
You're welcome. I'll move forward to council payment number 4 to Northeast Asphalt Incorporated for new construction and reconstruction of streets, sidewalks, and etc. Contract number 2016-02 in the amount of $102,126.99.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion and/or questions? Seeing none, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 6-0.
And I'm just looking to see if we have another one, and we do. This would be number 4, I believe, if I'm following correctly. Resolution R-28-16, a preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers under section 66.0703 of the Wisconsin statutes, introduced by yours truly. Director Stino, would you like to take this for me, please? Give us some information on it.
Sure, I believe this is for Lake Cottage Estates, which is the next development that is with Mr. Hagan's. The agreement was approved by the council 2 meetings ago, I believe, and this is the first go at the special assessments. There still will be a final resolution, but this one gets us going as far as being able to collect deposits, et cetera, for those special assessments. And there is already 1 lot sold.
Okay, thank you very much, Director. Any questions for Director or Mayor Merkus? Awesome. I'd entertain a motion then if there are none. Alderman Nichols.
Keep this train moving.
Thank you.
I moved that we forward to council resolution R-28-16, a preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers under section 66.0703 of the Wisconsin statutes.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Take a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 6-0.
Now, we do have another action item, number 6, which was amendment, a few amendments that Alderman Taylor has, but since he is not here, we will move that to the agenda for our next meeting. And seeing no other action items, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.